Joining me live now in the studio is the former High Commissioner to the UK, former Attorney General George Brandis, who is now Professor of National Security at the ANU. George Brandis, thanks for your time. Let's start with the diplomatic move here in Canberra. A big one over the last couple of days, the Prime Minister to meet with the new Ambassador, Caroline Kennedy. An appointment, I guess, which shows the significance with which the Biden administration holds the alliance with Australia.
Well, that's right. And, Caroline Kennedy obviously is political royalty in the United States. And she's not just, by the way, a person who's famous for being famous. She was a very successful ambassador for the United States in Japan under the Obama administration. So what I think it shows is that the weight and reliance that the United States gives to the relationship with Australia, which is, particularly come into focus in the last year or so with the AUKUS Pact and increasing attention to the Indo-Pacific.
We just saw the image there of Ms Kennedy, or Ambassador Kennedy, presenting her credentials to the Governor-General. Talk us through the symbolism of that as someone who's done something similar.
Well, it is. One thing I discovered when I became the High Commissioner in London is that there is a lot of protocol about diplomacy. The protocol isn't the most important thing, obviously, the conduct of the relationship is, but there's certainly a lot more formality and ceremony and protocol in diplomacy than there is in politics. And it would have been a handsome occasion, I'm sure, but Caroline Kennedy is obviously somebody who's going to want to get down to business and make sure that the relationship between Australia and the United States is as closely in sync as it possibly can be.
And do you think that is the case both in the context of the US and the United Kingdom, where you did serve up until recently, and that the AUKUS arrangement will remain on a firm footing?
I think that's right. Certainly the relationship with the United States, about which I profess no particular expertise, seems to be in a very good place. I can assure you the relationship with the United Kingdom is in an excellent place. And the fact that the AUKUS agreement, which ultimately is based on a very, very deep indwelling sense of mutual trust, was able to be done, I think is the proof of that. Even with friends and allies, the United States, or the United Kingdom for that matter, would have been very slow to commit to an arrangement quite as intimate, involving the sharing of so much intellectual property and high-level technology, high-end technology than the AUKUS agreement commits them to sharing with Australia. So I think in both cases, and I can certainly say from personal experience, in London until recently, the relationship with the UK is about as good as it could be, and that's also emblematic with the free trade agreement that was signed at the end of last year.
And do you think it certainly wouldn't have hurt the fact that the government, newly elected, has a more ambitious climate agenda, given the British? It's beyond politics, that issue, in many respects, with the major parties both agreeing that ambitious climate response is needed. And we've got Alok Sharma, the president of the COP, the climate conference that the UK hosted. He's in Australia as we speak, as a reminder of just that. So I guess it wouldn't have hurt Labor's position on that in terms of building a relationship with the Tory British government.
Well, look, the relationship between Australia and the United Kingdom is a good relationship, whether there are Labor governments in Australia or the United Kingdom, and Conservative governments in Australia or the United Kingdom. I know that Scott Morrison and Boris Johnson, for example, got on extremely well, but there is a high level of ambition among the Tories for more ambitious climate targets, and I think the government of the UK will be well pleased about the elevation of Australia's ambition. I'm not saying, by the way, that they will be pleased about the change of government. That's just a reality of politics. But this is one area where there was a less than total alignment between the British Tories and the Liberal Party and National Party in Australia, because They never had the climate wars in the UK that we had in Australia.
On to, we're just seeing some images there of the leadership contenders and Boris Johnson. Who do you think will be the next British Prime Minister?
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and predict that the person who is most likely to win is Liz Truss. And the reason I say that is because the final ballot, it's like a big primary, the final ballot is a ballot of the 160,000 or so Conservative Party rank and file members. And I mean, you know, she talks their language. She talks about freedom. She is one of the few modern Tories who's quite proud to identify with Margaret Thatcher, who is still revered by the Tory rank and file, if not by the general public. And the early opinion polls among the Tory rank and file show Truss to be way ahead of Rishi Sunak. The last one I saw a couple of days ago was about 62 to 38.
So an interesting, as you say, resonates with the rank and file, but was a former member of the Liberal Democratic Party, wasn't she, years ago?
Well, look, Liz Truss is one of those politicians who does have a remarkable ability to reinvent herself. When she was at Oxford, and by the way, she was taught at Oxford by an Australian scholar, Don Markwell, who many people in this country know. She was the president of the Liberal Democrats at Oxford University in the early 1990s. She also, at an earlier time, supported remaining in the EU, but those are positions that evolved and changed. And I don't think there is any doubt about the sincerity of her commitment to Thatcherism. What she really is, I know very well, what she really is a libertarian. I mean, she is one of those politicians that puts the freedom of the individual, free enterprise at the very top of her agenda. So she is what I would call a Thatcherite neoliberal.
And in terms of her appeal to the broader electorate, there's an argument that her opponent, Sunak, has more appeal in an electoral sense. Can you see why that point would be made?
Well, no doubt it's being made by people promoting Rishi Sunak. I wouldn't necessarily go along with that. I mean, look, they're both extremely talented people. I mean, Rishi Sunak has a fabulous backstory. I mean, he's the son of Indian migrants to the United Kingdom who came from East Africa a generation ago, and he's risen to the very top of the political ladder. He's an extraordinarily gifted and talented man. But I still of the view that Liz Truss better knows which Tory buttons to press.
George Brandis, we will talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.
George Brandis is now Professor of National Security at the ANU. Let's